with Eric Sheets-Haber. We're going to be talking through today's 6-game NBA slate. It's at 4:30, just as a reminder. So live will be at 6:30 Eastern.
Yep.
And it's just going through real quickly. I didn't play any NBA this weekend, but I did have some what seemed like good golf sweats until Sunday/Monday morning came around. So I kind of woke up to a disappointing result after having some real chances. I had a couple of top 50 lineups in the $5 and literally just had all the PHR left of anybody. Just couldn't get the right guys. But ready to get into basketball. Sheets, how was your weekend? And what do you think of this?
I had some good golf sweats until like the third hole of the first day, and had no sweats pretty much the whole weekend. The other part, again, my brain is just like obviously been a million places. Let's just go over kind of what happened. So First of all, I played I actually showed up for a little bit of Brandon's NASCAR thing on Sunday, just to say hello, whatever. I played the Xfinity Series race and I reserved 30 lineups and then I forgot to change them. So I played 30 of a duplicated dummy lineup that finished last. So that's where that was Saturday. Yesterday, I put in some hockey lineups, and I forgot to double check my goalie. And my goalie in one of my lineups was scratched. And all it required is to notice, and they always put the replacement goalie at the same price. So it would take literally 3 seconds to swap through. But I didn't notice, and the replacement goalie would have got me first place in the GPP, by the way, instead of the 0, which I got. So that was my brain this weekend. However, I won a GPP yesterday in the NBA. I played the 222 early slate and won it by myself for $5K.
Let's go.
By 15 points. So So when the Celtics blew out the Warriors, I had all the Peyton Pritchard garbage time run it up.
I'd love to see it. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was good. That made up for the brain deficiencies for the rest of the weekend. But I'm ready to get into today because I already have a who is question, which we're going to deal with later on in the slate.
Yeah, I understand. I already know what that's going to be. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's pull up your screen and we'll go game by game here and try to make sense of this one. Here we go. Let's see. All right. What do you have first? It's the.
So it's interesting. I mean, we'll do fine. First of all, an overview of the slate. One thing that's interesting is I think that Draft FanDuel played kind of a switcheroo. I think FanDuel is missing the late games from their slate, but DraftKings is keeping them. So I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'll have to double check that. And I always have to double check to make sure whether it's late swap or not. So I guess it's all late swap today. I'm presuming that. And it's looking like sort of a 2-game slate, but we'll look at it. First thing I have right now is Memphis, Brooklyn. And let me see. My first look at this was just one of the games I just wasn't getting to. Like Gregory Jackson at 5,100. He would be, I guess, the top guy rated. But overall, I don't really have too much. And Brooklyn, I'm getting almost 0 of completely. So fortunately, it's the first game of the night. So it could be a little passeroo to see if stuff comes up later. That's my initial take.
Yeah, you always say that certain teams seem like they play each other every night. I feel like that happens with Memphis and Brooklyn, and it's
they're not even in the same division. It's like
I know the whole thing, but it's not even that they're playing. It's like I get them mixed up because then you've got Portland. Like I just get them all the horrible teams mixed up in these games together. And
right.
It was by the way, a lot of people were tilting and justifiably so because Portland played back-to-back nights against Memphis, and we had one big slate, and we were hammering the Memphis, and Memphis was showing up at like. Everybody was like 40% owned and all this stuff. And literally like nobody got there. And then the next night, literally all of them got there and they crushed and they got killed one night and they killed them the other night. It was it was just one of those things. Memphis. I have Jackson as a possibility. I don't mind the idea of Luke Kennard, but I'm probably off of off of this game mostly. It should be kind of ugly. I do think Mikal Bridges is interesting on the other side, but nothing that sort of stands out and jumps out at you at first glance. Maybe you could argue for Nick Claxton. I think that's something that I might consider doing a little later, is just Claxton against a team that rebounds this poorly, is this bad inside. I could consider him, but that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this slate here, I'm just kind of getting a sense of this, this constant, like, De'Aaron Fox thing is it's like a little tilting and annoying. He participates in shoot around, and then he just doesn't play. Then he participates in shoot around, and then he just doesn't play. And now he's participating, full participant in practice. They say he's trending in the right direction, but he's still questionable, and it's a 10 p.m. game. So something to think about when you're dealing with these 8 o'clock games, as you'll get to. Like, there's a 9 o'clock game where it has pretty much all the values.
Well, it's interesting, just to touch on that really quickly, and we'll get into it later. But I just want to say that I've been saying the same exact thing every day about this. Just overload, and the difference is now he's a little more expensive, but just overload Malik Monk. Like, just make sure, like, he's always going to have a chance to get there anyway.
Yeah.
And with no Fox, he only put 30 the game before last, but he put 53 the other night. I do think that's probably your best solution without knowing. But again, it is going to be tough. All right, Portland, Minnesota.
What's the spread here? Like 30? I mean, like,
you feel like it would be, right? It's only 14.
I mean, Jabari Walker looks reasonable enough at 4,700 for Portland. And then, I don't know, can you really play these Minnesota guys and just hope they get the run? I don't know. Listen, Anthony Edwards is under 9K and 5% owned. I mean, you can always play this. And God forbid this game does stay sort of close. I mean, these guys are all cheap. Cat 83, Gobert 7,500. The other Portland guy, I'm looking at maybe Ayton is all right, but he's questionable. I don't know. It's a tricky one. I'm inclined to probably pass, but I don't know. You have any priorities here?
I'm trying to make sense out of some of this stuff. No, at Portland, I mean, it's just a complete mess. I really am having a hard time in general trying to figure out what to do. What I would say is that, like, a little tilting now that he's going to have some popularity, because again, another one of the few right things I've been doing is saying that Jabari Walker was a really good pivot off of some of the other value that we've been playing, and he's just completely crushed the last couple times out. I do like Jabari Walker to take a shot on. Ashton Hagans, I don't know a whole lot about him, but they are giving him minutes, and because of, like, you have Ayton and Thibault questionable, I think he's going to get some minutes again, and I think he's a reasonable guy to take a shot on. I'll do a little more digging before the 7:30 Eastern or 6:30 Eastern time. But that was another one that occurred to me. I feel like there's a lot of meh plays. You could argue for Banton or Murray. Maybe the right idea is just to either fade it, play one of these value guys on the Portland side. But if you're going to pretend this game stays close and play some of the other side on Minnesota, I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of exposure to Simons, just because that's probably the way it stays close, is if Simons gets really hot. But on the Minnesota side, everybody looks fine, and I am not getting to any of them. I think if you're going to make a play here and get a little cute, who to do that with would be Naz Reid. Naz Reid, we all know he has a monster ceiling, and in a game that they could be blowing him out, he can lead that second unit and just completely crush here. So he would be my tournament dart here, would be Naz Reid, but nobody who stands out as a legitimate play for me on Minnesota right now.
Who did Hagans replace to get all these minutes?
There's no replace in Portland because none of these guys play. Brogdon, Jeremy Grant, Shaedon Sharpe, Robert Williams, Scoot Henderson, and those all have been a mix of being out all season.
No, what I mean, though, is that he obviously didn't start, right? So I guess it looked like he was just playing well, and they left him in, I suppose.
How many minutes? 33?
33.
They got killed, they were down like 30 in that game.
Yeah, but he this 33 minutes was overtime.
Well, what was overtime that last game?
Yep.
No way, really?
Yep.
Oh, now that's confusing to me. Okay, now I'm a
Yeah,
little.
they won by 7 at Memphis in overtime.
Oh, that was a different game. Yeah.
Yeah, and he scored 35 fantasy points, and he's 4K. I mean, I think people are going to play this dude, right? I mean, maybe we should. It's
I'm trying to figure it out. I can't answer that one right now because I haven't done enough digging. I have a feeling that you're right about the way that it happened, and honestly, we have no idea what starting lineup they're going to run out there. They've sort of changed up their starting lineup. We also have the Ayton questionable and Thibault questionable, which would open up even more for him.
Grant is out. I mean, he's doubtful.
Yeah, I know Grant's out. But the starting lineup is totally in flux because 5 of their top 6 may be out for this game. So as of right now, I don't want to do a research on the last game because I actually think that would be the wrong way. Because last game we had Jeremy Grant, we had some other guys. I got to just double check their lineups. I'm not caught up on this one yet.
All right.
But yeah, I have him written down as a potential play. All right. We have the Clippers and Milwaukee.
Early look. It was weird. Well, first of all, Giannis obviously looks like a good player, 11-5, just in general. He's actually getting some ownership because I guess the value is going to make it kind of easy to play him.
Yeah.
So, and he projects 5 points higher than the next highest guy. So, certainly looks pretty good. Oddly, in my initial builds, I was getting some Lillard here, and I just don't recall me playing him at all this season. And I'm looking at him at only early look like less than 5% ownership. I'm kind of into that. You know what I mean? Like just that idea. So if I get to somebody like that, I'm certainly not going to turn it down. How about that? So that's that. On the Clipper side of it, I mean, Kawhi 9K at 6%. I guess that's sort of reasonable as well. And that's pretty much all I have. And what do you like? Any of the studs in Milwaukee? You like Kawhi? Anybody else?
Yeah, I feel like the projections are a little bit off, to be honest with you, with as far as the Clippers are concerned. I'm going to buy into basically playing the idea of playing one of George, Harden, or Kawhi. It's probably going to be Kawhi for me. But I like this tough matchup on the road, up-pace matchup for them against Milwaukee. Milwaukee's finally gotten hot, but is the worst team. I think they're the second worst team against the spread this season. So, and they're only 5-point favorites. I'm just saying that the perception of Milwaukee is a lot different than the actual reality of what we've seen this year. So, I do think this is a good spot though for the Clippers. They give up threes with the drop coverage. Kawhi seems like the best bet. Harden and Kawhi and Paul George are both interesting to me. But also with no Westbrook, both Norman Powell and Terrence Mann, I think, make for interesting tournament plays, if not Zubac. So I'm definitely going to have some interest in this game, maybe more than others. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. And for what it's worth, I've been on a massive struggle streak and not pulling triggers on things like this that I thought made some sense. And I think I'm going to pull the trigger today for sure on one of these Clippers is what I'm planning to do. I do like Giannis on the other side, and I have no issue if you want to play Lillard instead. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Saves you some money. There's plenty of upside. I don't think the SaberSim projection is anywhere near close to accurate. I think it should be a little bit higher, probably 4 or 5 points higher. So and I think other sites do have him a little bit higher for what it's worth. But I don't mind taking a shot on Lillard. I prefer the Giannis play, but I definitely don't mind the Lillard thing. So I think that you're getting, for me, I'm probably going to end up using this as some of my spend ups here and pretend this game is close. And don't be surprised if we also get somebody ruled out because it is a back. Is it a back? No, it's not a back-to-back. Never mind. But yeah, I do like the Clippers side of this and Giannis as a run back.
So it is early, but if you were looking at my sheet right now, you would see just Washington, Utah, and Chicago. I'm going bleeding into that next game, right? Just really dominating this list, like very rarely see. So let's just start with the Washington Utah game, and this is something that we've seen before, like so many times. I feel like this is kind of a broken record, But we'll just go through this. Like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Utah guys rated in the top like 14 of my values, and starting with the who is Bryce Sensabaugh question, who is currently 63% owned at he's 3,200 with a 22-point projection, and that is coming off of 0 games where he showed that he can get that because he hasn't had the chance to play, because all these other guys, because Lowry is now out, et cetera, et cetera. So there's him. Then there's Colin Sexton, Keontae George, John Collins, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Jordan Clarkson, and Taylor Hendricks. So the question, I know we've had this discussion before. I'll go to Washington next, then I'll turn it over to you. I just feel like I just hear Bobby in the back of my head, like Utah, all this stuff. Like Utah, they have 5 guys that look good, but they have 11 guys, and it's just frustrating. So I'll wait for you to handle that. Before we get there, I'll talk about the Washington guys who are showing up, which are Kuzma, looks like a really good play. The oft played and busting Jordan Poole, Demi Avdia, my new hero Tyus Jones, even like Bagley and Koulibaly. This is like the stack game of the freaking century, apparently. So, how do you make heads or tails of all of this? Exactly. You start every single time. It looks so easy with the Utah. Then you're like, and then we can all like bet. We always get it wrong. I mean, I always get it wrong.
Right. Anyway, sorry. I'm just I'm trying to figure it out. Like so I'll start with I guess I don't even want to say easier side because Washington's tough too. I think Kuzma's a really good play. I think that Koulibaly is fine. I think that Avdia would be Avdia, given the ownership, might end up being my favorite. But I'm going to say probably I'm looking at trying to get, if you're going to play 4 from Utah, I would play 2 from Washington. If you're going to play 3, I think you still play 1. So I would say 1 or 2 minimum, and those would be the way that I would rank them. Jordan Poole, we could always take a shot at the one guy who doesn't project well, though, also in addition to Avdia, that I think we should play is your guy who helped you win all the money before, is Tyus Jones.
That's what I said, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think that who cares? There's a couple of down games in there. We're playing for ceilings anyway, and it's not long ago, literally not long ago at all, that he was basically putting up 36 minimum every night and got up to 52.5. I'm totally good with that too. So I like the idea of getting to 1 or 2 from Washington. Again, Kuzma, Koulibaly may make the most sense on paper. I like the Avdia Jones to get different. And then the Utah, Bryce Sensabaugh is a first round pick from the Jazz this year. He was the 28th overall pick. He played at Ohio State. Solid guy, nothing spectacular. This projection seems very, very aggressive, and assuming that he starts feels a little bit aggressive, considering that I don't think that's happened yet. And they have 9 other guys they could start. And in reality, regardless of who starts, those minutes are probably going to get shifted over to Jordan Clarkson, Chris Dunn, Taylor Horton-Tucker, and to some extent, even a guy like Yurtseven is going to get some run. So, at the 5. So, yeah, I might be a little bit I'd like to be lower on the Jazz in general. I'm not doing a bunch of multi-entering today. Probably going to be minimal lineups until I start getting back on the winning train. But I as of right now, I guess assuming that Sensabaugh starts, I think it's a reasonable play. I think he's being over projected still, but I think it's reasonable to take a shot. And I think that it's reasonable to. I think the next ones that make the most sense are Sexton, Clarkson, who will be a little bit lower owned. I think taking a shot on Horton-Tucker tonight is probably a really good pivot off of Sensabaugh. And then I have Hendricks as next. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I have Collins, then Hendricks. So, yes, Utah, I have it as a minimum of 2 right now, even with all this stuff, just because there's just, at least 2 of these guys are probably going to get there unless it really balances out in a very strange way. But it's hard to figure out, man. And if you want to be safe, I guess you go, assuming Sensabaugh starts, I guess you go with Sensabaugh, Sexton, Collins. But I personally like the idea of getting to a little bit of Hendricks and Clarkson and Horton Tucker. So I will have these guys mixed in. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet, but there's probably going to be at least 2 of them on all my lineups as of right now.
How does a 6,300 Keontae George sound?
I mean, it's just like I like Keontae George, so I don't think there's anything price wise or anything. It's just I don't know. It's he just crushed that price twice in a row, and he's really good. I'm very high on this guy in his future. He's a top pick. I don't have any problem with it, but I don't think that I don't think it's like stands out as being better than any of the other plays. I feel like Sexton and a lower owned Clarkson have just as good of a chance of getting there.
Okay. Chicago, Sacramento. So you have this double big thing, right? With the Bulls. They've been making it work.
They've only done it in certain matchups.
Yeah, but what happens is when you run these things, you're getting both of them in some lineups. And that's an interesting way to play if you get it right. If you get that basketball take right, and you get the 2 playing together, and you get the max minutes, that's pretty big. So that's the first thing I want to bring up. Both those guys look like good plays, and then the other Chicago's are fine too. DeRozan and Kobe White. Ayo Dosunmu every once in a while puts up freaking ceilings. I mean, he's doing well, and then the news of the day, as usual, is whether Fox is going to play. And as you already brought up, you might do okay just playing Monk anyway. You play Monk, and if you get the news that Fox is starting, then you could pivot off from Monk if you feel like it. You'll have some stuff that you can do. And if you do get Fox being out, that there's not going to be many swap abilities available for people, because Washington, Utah, that's a lot of guys that people are going to want to play. So if you want to gamble and play Monk early, when the 9:00 game locks, I think it's a pretty decent calculated risk if the news on Fox is not out yet.
Mm-hmm.
Sabonis, he can always put up a big number. I would imagine with both Vooch and Drummond there that it's not going to be like a 30 rebound night for Sabonis. But he's always good, and that's pretty much what I got.
Yeah, really, really tough with Chicago because it really is matchup dependent with Drummond. I don't believe he started the last game. I think he's only started against the teams with the double bigs.
Okay.
But he won't start, I don't think. Let me just see real quickly if he's projected to start. I have to double check the last game too, because sometimes it gets a little bit blurry. Yeah, they don't have him projected to start tonight.
Yeah, February 28th was the game when they played Cleveland.
Because Cleveland has the double big.
Played like 40 minutes.
Well, that one we knew. Yeah, he was like 95% on, and it made perfect sense because they started him against Cleveland. They started him against New Orleans. Those are the 2 teams we've seen them be starting against consistently. Detroit, he just played a bunch because he was playing really well with the second unit. So all right. So I don't ever mind taking a shot here, but feels a little bit aggressive with the projection because there is also a path where Drummond plays like 14 minutes tonight.
Yep.
So I actually think the guy I'm most interested in is Kobe White. The matchup probably suits him the best of any of them. Really, really like what Kobe White's done this year. By the way, strangely, the number 1 player in the league, which is bizarre in clutch minutes. I don't know how that's possible, but I like Kobe White, and I think it's a good idea to get to one of White, DeRozan, or Vooch. I think I would go White, then Vooch, then DeRozan, but always room to go other ways. I don't think I can do Drummond with the ownership. I just think that it's too speculative, and if he really is going to be now, if you told me he's going to be like 8% owned, then maybe I take a shot. But if he's going to be 30% owned, I'll just pass and just hope it doesn't beat me. Simple as that. But it also does take away some of the love for Vooch, so it's a little tricky because they're not necessarily going to play them just together tonight. We also have Caruso questionable, which was determined a little bit more with Drummond, and we may not know that before lock. We likely won't. So I think the soon move might be a little bit better of a play as well. But yeah, the Bulls have been playing their main guys a ton of minutes. So I would continue with this, trying to get to one of them. For me, it's White. Well, for me, it's White to Sunmu are the most interesting for tournaments. but getting certainly at least one bull probably in most of my lineups as of right now. And the Sacramento side, it's, like you said, with the Fox thing, now they did make it tricky on us by making Malik Monk pricier to where even if Fox was out, I don't know that Monk would necessarily project to be like an amazing play. Chris Duarte would probably be an interesting tournament dart to take. But I don't know that I wanted, I don't know. We've seen Davion Mitchell start in this spot and just do nothing. But if he was starting again, I would probably take a shot there. So really hard with the Fox thing. I think the best thing is to probably take the shot on Monk and hope it works out your way. And even if it doesn't, there is always that ceiling. We've seen Monk score 50 fantasy points plenty of times with the Aaron Fox and Sabonis out there. So no interest in Sabonis for me. I do like a little bit of Keegan Murray, but mainly it's the Bulls side that's interesting to me here. And unless we get Fox out again, which hopefully we get at least some like speculative clarity on earlier today. All right. The late night hammer.
Yeah. I think it's the late night, probably the late night pass. I don't know. Well, I mean, I'm looking at the projections here. I guess they look okay. Davis at 10-1. I mean, what else? What am I doing here? I don't know. It's definitely it's always a good feeling when you have somebody from this game, you know. But I don't think I'm going to need it. I don't know. You like anything here?
Shea always kills the Lakers, and I don't usually recommend Shea as much because usually the guys in this price range are, it's too hard when he's like a few $100s different than some of the other top studs. Shea is on his way to potentially winning an MVP this season. Like, that's no joke. He really may win the MVP. And I think he is a very legitimate like tournament play. But again, it's just a matter of how many guys can you have. Also, he and Jalen Williams are the two that I would have the most interest in. On the Lakers side, I do think that Anthony Davis at 10-1 is interesting, and we have the questionable LeBron. I like the idea of getting to these guys. I do think backloading has some advantages because you have the Utah situation. We don't know who's starting. And some of this early stuff is just sort of fringier anyway. So I think that's sort of the way that I'm going to treat this slate is sort of a little bit from a backloading standpoint. What do you think, Sheets? Doesn't that seem to make a little sense?
I'm looking at this lineup like here, like for example, you play Shea and then I go just some of these random Washington Utahs. Can't quite get everything you want, but
yeah, it's pretty reasonable.
But this is reasonable. You still have to fit the rest of the Santa 4,500 a man, but nobody says you have to play Tyus Jones. They could play Koulibaly instead or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I like Koulibaly's price, by the way. He's only 4,500.
Yeah, so, Koulibaly's 4,500. Jabari Walker's 47. Hendricks at 49 is interesting. I forgot to mention him for Utah, but yeah, I think there's some ways to do it. And as we know, once we get off, that there's going to be some news out there. Christopher, I like that you mentioned that. Yeah, he said don't sleep on Taylor Hendricks. I'm with you. I think I like the Hendricks play more than I should have pointed that one out before. We got a couple questions here for you, Sheets. Pingalore is asking, when you use the contest sims, what settings do you use to run the 5,000 lineups?
Okay, so with the NBA, all right. So I'm going to show you. So there's two competing interests here. Okay. First thing is that when you run 5,000 lineups, it depends on what type of tournament you're playing. Okay. So you could, if you wanted to, start with the 150 max settings and start with that. Remember, you're just getting the 5,000 lineups from which you are kind of filtering after the fact. But what I like to do is set it to 20 max anyway. And the reason for that is, number one, I don't want to say laziness, but listen, if you're going to play some lineups in the 3 max, some lineups in the 20, some in the 150, I think 20 max is a good, it's a good place to, it's a good kind of, middling way to start your 5,000. The other thing is that sometimes, as I've discussed, instead of using the Saber Sim ownership for my field of lineups to compare mine to, what I sometimes like to do is use the 5,000 I build as those field lineups. So if I'm going to try to predict what a field set of lineups are going to look like, I'm going to be a little less aggressive with that as far as what types of lineups the entire pool is going to play. So what I'm saying is this: is I'm going to predict what the whole field is going to do. I'm more inclined to set it to 20 max anyway, because in general the field is a little bit too, I guess not quite as aggressive as they should be. So that's why when I'm setting my 5,000 lineups in the NBA, I will default to the 20 max settings on Sabres.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. 5 best value plays. Jolly, what I found is early in the day, trying to figure out your value plays is probably the worst time to figure out your value plays. I think it's a better place to try to figure out the actual guys you want to play. But to answer that question about that, I would say that Sensabaugh, Jabari Walker, Koulibaly and Hendricks would be my top 4 right now. But I don't know who the 5th one would be.
What I would like to know is this, Jolly. Is it true that Jolly, you take down like a NASCAR tournament?
Oh, let's see.
That might be true. I'm not 100% sure. I've been kind of out of the Discord, but I saw someone with the name Jolly, and I think his Twitter name was Jolly also something. Took down something in NASCAR. If so, congratulations. If not, then you have an imposter. Yeah, so again, best value players, like right now, it's going to depend on who starts to some degree in Utah. But it's probably going to come from Utah just in some sense, unless you get like some random guy being out that we don't know about.
Yep, sounds good. All right. Well, we'll be live at 6:30. Have some more clarity on the slate, and again, I'm gonna have my content out later and later. I feel like it's really harmed me trying to figure out some of the early stuff, and I get stuck on ideas and I don't get off of it as much. So I like to try and get that stuff out a little bit later in the day, and I think it's better content than if I do that. I also, guys, if you do have lineups you want me to look over, and I keep getting DMs about this, but I end up trying to juggle a million things right before lock, and it's really difficult. And I really would ask if you don't DM me your lineups unless you do it really early in the day. And even still, I would rather you put it in the Discord channel if you're a member. But I do try to get to everybody's responses. It's really hard to do when everybody's doing it at 6:30 Eastern time, and I'm trying to build my lineups, and then afterwards are frustrated because I couldn't respond. There's no way I can actually be effective if I can't actually do my stuff as well.
Well, one thing we could trot out again, if somebody wants to do it, I'm sure people would, is a live coaching thing, sort of, where
absolutely.
Where if somebody wants to have come onto the stream, they'll share their screen and we can see how you're building, what technology you're using, how you're twisting around or whatever. And while, we'd be able to give you some advice on your lineups, I think more to the point, we'd give you some advice on how to build future lineups as well. So I don't know how we'd pick who we'd want to do that, but that's certainly more useful, I think, than someone coming and say, who do you like between Kuzma and Drummond for my last spot?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And by the way, we brought that up in our meeting the other night, and Brandon said he would be happy to go through some of that stuff with people too. Like, I think we have a good team of us. We could definitely be of hand, be of help.
Wasn't you, Jolly? Sorry
about that. Apparently, K9 likes the coaching idea. Yeah, I think we'll start doing that. And by the way, it is the Millionaire on Wednesday this week. If you do want to go live, I am completely game for it.
Ooh, okay.
And for others, I might be going to Vegas. It looks like I'm going to Vegas on Friday, so I may or may not be out on Friday. Just FYI. It's really weird to go to Vegas now. One place I can't play DFS. It's really frustrating.
Hang on, I just want to confirm that this is. So this Jolly that had to take. This is not you, Jolly. Is that right?
That must be a
I just saw a Jolly with a takedown in NASCAR DFS, so I guess this is a different Jolly. All right. Figured I saw the name Jolly in our Discord.
Makes sense.
I'm thinking of you. We'll just say that.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody tonight, and we'll see you.